boy Luke, here for another prize picks breakdown, this time for round 3 of the Farmers Insurance Open. And oh boy, were our picks for Thursday fire. We went 4 for 4 here on the channel. I told you that was going to happen sometime here soon. It was a quick turnaround from the absolute horrible picks that we had on Wednesday, so ended up hitting quite a few of our cards. Went 5 for 5. We did have a power play as well where I added Joaquin under 71 fantasy score and hit for quite a bit of money. I had $200 on that, turned that into a little bit over $2,000. But of course, our regular allotment of our smaller cards. We had over $250 on multiple 3-leg parlays, a few $100 ones sprinkled in there as well, which made for by far my most profitable night there on prize picks. So we're looking to build on that. Just a quick review of yesterday's picks. We did have under 71 fantasy score for Keegan Bradley, which was pretty much a home run pick, playing the easier golf course, long off the tee, played well at the South course on round 1. So we ended up hitting the under by 1 stroke there. We had the under 71.5 fantasy score for Matthew Wolff. He ended up shooting a 70 today, so beat that by 1.5 strokes, and honestly surprised he didn't come in even lower. He was also playing at the relatively easy golf course, and he's a high birdie type of player. We also had the under on Mark Leishman at 69.5 fantasy score. He shot a 67, so ended up clearing that quite comfortably for us. Of course, that line was just a little bit too high for Mark Leishman, somebody who was also playing the easier of the two venues and is one of the best players, quite frankly, in the entire world. The last pick that we had, the one over we had to take, was the Cam Davis over 70 fantasy score. He was playing the more difficult of the two venues, which made it an easy target for an over. Of course, he was also not a great course fit. Relatively bad around the green player. He does have that distance we're looking for at the South course, but a lower pedigree player, I thought his line should have been closer to 71.5, kind of like what we had for Matthew Wolff. So overall made for a very solid day. Today, we're looking at a different prop. Yesterday, we were looking at fantasy score. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the fairways props. First off, we're playing at the South course, which is the more difficult of the two, and the fairway rate there only right around 42%. So a lot of the lines that Prize Picks has out there are close to 7, 7.5, even 8 fairways hit for some of these players, and even the more elite players in this field should hit less fairways than that. So should be quite a bit of expected value there. So with that being said, let's hop into my top 4 props for Friday at the Farmers. All right, guys, on the screen, you can see our prop board for today. And first off, we're going to start with Joaquin Niemann at 8 fairways hit. I really like the under here. That is an egregiously high line for somebody like Niemann, who is not a very accurate driver of the golf ball. And the average for fairways hit here on the South course is 42%. That means that even the best drivers of the golf ball are probably looking at hitting 55, maybe 60% of the fairways if they get a little bit lucky. And for Niemann to hit 8 fairways, he needs to hit at least 60% of them. And for his career, he's closer to a 55% driving average. And now that we're at Torrey Pines with these fairways that are tiny, especially compared to some of the fairways we've seen over these last few weeks, he's going to be a clear take on the under. I would put his line closer to something like 6.5. I might be tempted to take the over at something like that, but all the way up here at 8 fairways hit, going to be a clear underplay. Next up, we have Sungjae Im at 8.5 fairways. He's tied up here with Jon Rahm in terms of fairways hit, and quite frankly, I consider taking the under on Jon Rahm. He has not been a very accurate driver of the golf ball to this point. Sungjae Im historically is an accurate driver, but to this point of the week has not really had that type of game. Sungjae is typically a straight driver of the ball, but when he gets out of sorts, it tends to go downhill pretty quickly. And for him to hit over 8.5 fairways, he's going to have to hit 70, 68% of his fairways, somewhere in that range. And I just quite frankly don't see that happening. That would be almost a 25% increase over what the field is doing. And because he hasn't had his driver to this point of the week, I don't see him turning it around in that type of fashion. So also a clear underplay. I even considered taking Jon Rahm on the under. But if we're going to take somebody up top, take somebody at 8.5 fairways, clearly Sungjae Im, the much more palatable of the two. Let's go down to the bottom. Let's talk about our over before we finish up with Siwoo Kim. We're going to go over 6.5 fairways for Justin Thomas. And again, even though the average here is so low, Justin Thomas is a prolific driver of the golf ball. If you had him at 8.5 fairways, I'd probably be taking the under, but much like a Joaquin Niemann, this is a more than fair metric for him. So I see him hitting 7-8 fairways tomorrow. On average, he's probably going to hit closer to 7.5, 7.7 if we take a look at his historical averages. And even though he doesn't have much experience at this golf course, he played the South Course today, hit a ton of fairways. I expect him to go out and have just as much success. So I'm going to be taking the over on Justin Thomas, which is going to be the only one on our card for tomorrow. Again, I expect a lot of these players to struggle hitting fairways. The average is 42%. And if we use 42% as the average, most of these guys are going to be hitting somewhere around 6, maybe even 5.5 fairways. So you could argue that almost all of these should be unders. But lastly, we have Siwoo Kim at 7.5 fairways. This is almost a stone cold lock. He's somebody who's extremely inaccurate off the tee, typically only in play at some of these golf courses where we have large fairways. You don't have to worry about getting into a lot of trouble. That is not the case for Siwoo Kim, right? At this golf course, Torrey Pines, prolifically difficult fairways to hit. So I really like the under. I think it could even have been at 7, and I would have taken the under on a Siwoo Kim. I mean, Mark Leishman, Billy Horschel, Xander Schauffele, Daniel Berger, much more accurate drivers. Siwoo Kim's pretty much the odd man out here. I mean, same thing with Cameron Tringale, also very precise off the tee, which makes him just a clear choice in the middle range. So I'll be taking the under there. And again, just to review, we have the under on Joaquin Niemann at 8 fairways, the under on Sungjae at 8.5, the over on Justin Thomas at 6.5 fairways, and the under on Siwoo Kim. In terms of lineup construction and how I'll be making my cards, because I don't think any of these are locks. I know yesterday Matthew Wolff seemed like a stole cold lock. Same thing with that Keegan Bradley. These a little bit closer towards average, right? You're looking at around a 5 to 7% edge at least on a lot of these props, closer to something like 10 to 15% for Joaquin Niemann, closer to 10% for something like a Sungjae M. But the Justin Thomas and Siwoo Kim props, just slightly above average play. So I will be using them in flex play formats. Not going to be going with the power play here. Likely going to be going with 3 different flex plays. We're going to be using all 4 of these props, but just taking one out in each prop, right? You obviously can't do it with the over. We are going to have Justin Thomas in all of our lineups, so all 3 of the cards that we run. But that's how I'm going to do it, right? We're going to have Justin Thomas in a combination with these other 3 cards, which should give us a relatively safe card. But of course, if all 4 props end up hitting, as we did yesterday, going to still be a massive day. So that's how we're going to go ahead and take this. If you're feeling daring, you can go ahead and make it a power play, right? By all means, you're making your own cards. I don't tell you what to do. But because of the volatility of some of these stats, like a driving accuracy, I don't know if that's the best move. So that's my take on it. At least, have at it with what you want to do. All I've got for the Prize Picks preview. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments before you get out of here what your favorite prop for tomorrow is. It doesn't have to be a fairways prop. It can be a fantasy score. Could be any of the other categories up there on Prize Picks. But go ahead and let me know what your single favorite prop is. I always love to hear from you guys. Always love to get a little bit of debate going down in the comments as well. So make sure you go ahead and do so. Also, if you haven't already liked the video or subscribed to the channel, make sure you go ahead and do both of those. Like in the video, make sure that I know you're enjoying this content and want to see even more coming out in the future. It also gets it out there to a lot more people. Make sure that they're able to see the video, but subscribing even more so important. If you're making sure that you want to see all the content I'm dropping in the future, whether it's for golf DFS, whether it's a golf course breakdown, or of course, all of these Prize Picks breakdowns, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you know when I'm going live, when I'm uploading, all that sort of fun stuff. Good luck with all of your cards for tomorrow. Good luck with your prop hunting, and let's get this cash.